And hey, this is Wednesday, October 14th, advanced class. We're going to get into black cats and all kinds of fun stuff, reminding you about irony. See, blah, blah, grades, boop, 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 points. Hall passes have been handed out to pictures of random kids. New IXL F.1 has been assigned to you, which is on IXL. Quiz coming up Thursday and Friday, which is going to cover landlady, irony, black cat. We're getting ready to start. And then a story called Charles. You have to read all on your own, which is on Canvas, and I sent it out to you guys in the message. Then we covered some of that stuff, the irony, as we get into the story today, the story of Charles, story of Black Cat. They have irony in them, so it'll just be a matter of making sure you remember all that irony stuff. Then let's get to Black Cat. Those of you who have story, then you should have it in front. Ooh, what do we call the part of the story at the start?
Exposition.
What do we do about exposition? So on this one, that first column of the story, that first columny thing is going to be the boring beginning stuff. And we're going to figure out who the main character is. Here's what I want to ask you as we get into it. As I read to you, figure out who the main character is, and then sort of figure out what we find out about the main character, what they like, what they don't like, stuff about them, things like that. Then we're going to get into what comes after exposition.
Rising action.
We jump right into the rising action. And for some of you, it's going to blow your hair straight back. All right, let's begin. And for those of you, I have Black Cat, at least the beginning of the story, up there on the screen to try and help you out. Black Cat. For the most, oh, by the way, this is written by Edgar Allan Poe. For those of you who did like The Raven in the past or something, stories like that. He did a bunch of poems. Telltale Heart was one he also did. So, yes, the bum bum. That'd be the one. Same author of that one. Right. For the most wild yet most unpleasant story which I'm about to write, I neither expect nor ask for belief. Crazy indeed would I be to expect it in a case where my very senses reject their own evidence. Yet insane I am not, and very surely did I not dream it. But tomorrow I die, and today I would unburden my soul. Ooh, things I asked already. We already know what point of view the story's in. How do we know it's in first person? Nicely done. As long as they're in your brain. And we know something's going to happen to the main character tomorrow. He's going to die. And so we're going to find out more about why he's going to die. Since I was a baby, I was noted for the happiness and humanity of my personality. My tenderness of heart was even so obvious as to make me the butt of my friends' jokes. I was especially fond of animals and was indulged by my parents with a great variety of pets. With these, I spent most of my time and never was so happy as when feeding and petting them. This oddity of character grew with my growth, and in my adulthood, I derived from it one of my major sources of pleasure. To those who have cherished affection for a faithful and friendly dog, I need hardly be at the trouble of explaining the nature or the intensity of the satisfaction I had. I married early in my life and was happy to find in my wife an attitude not unlike my own. Observing my soft spot for domestic pets, she lost no opportunity of purchasing those of the most agreeable kind. We had birds, goldfish, a fine dog, rabbits, a small monkey, and a cat. The cat was a remarkably large and beautiful animal, entirely black and friendly to an astonishing degree. In speaking of his intelligence, my wife, who at heart was not a little touched with superstition, made frequent references to the ancient popular notion which regarded all black cats as witches in disguise. Not that she was ever serious upon this point. I'm going to pause there for a moment. You guys know what superstition means? Yeah. Not bad. Having a certain belief that goes along with it. So the thinking of black cat as a witch, we've heard of superstition. For those of you who are sports people, if there's always like the same pair of socks you have to wear, or doing like the same ritual right before you go out and play a game, that superstition where like, if I don't do this particular thing, then bad things will happen. That's the idea of superstition. His wife, superstitious. She says, if you have a black cat, the black cat crossing your path, connected to superstition. Or walking underneath of a ladder, superstition. So those are the things, there's no real reason for this belief, but it's a thing that you feel strongly about. Mina, should I? Did the problem solved? I marked on here something my stopping point was, helping me out. What do we know about main character? He does have a wife. So how does he feel about animals? There you go. So he has a wife, and do we know his name? Don't know his name yet. Nope, that's the author. So we don't know the character's name. It is not Edgar Allan Poe. That is the author. And we know he has a bunch of it because we said he likes animals, right? Has animals, likes animals, has wife. Wife is superstitious. All right. And then also the fact that he has black cat. Pluto, this was the cat's name, was my favorite pet and playmate. I alone fed him, and he followed me whenever I went about the house. It was even with difficulty that I could prevent him from following me through the streets. Our friendship lasted in this manner for several years, during which my general attitude and character, through the effects of alcohol, had, I blush to confess it, experienced a radical alteration for the worse. I grew day by day more moody, more irritable, more regardless of the feelings of others. I suffered myself to use harsh language to my wife. At length, I even attacked her with personal violence. We are now getting into the upper part of the story. We find out that he has a bad habit, which is he is an alcohol. He drinks too much alcohol, which is going to impact him. And what kind of drunk is he?
Mad.
There you go. So the fact, because what does he do when he drinks?
He beats his wife.
There you go. The fact that he is abusive towards his wife, which is not a good thing, and probably going to come back and haunt him. All right.
I think I'm a funny.
My pets, of course, were made to feel the change in my personality. I not only neglected, but abused them. For Pluto, however, I still retained enough thought to restrain me from mistreating him, as I made no hesitation of mistreating the rabbits, the monkey, or even the dog, when by accident or through their affection, they got in my way. But my disease grew upon me, for what disease is like alcohol? And at length, even Pluto, who is now becoming old and consequently somewhat bad-tempered, even Pluto began to experience the effects of my bad temper. And yes, Brady, good job. There is another witch in this story, apparently. Apparently, Brady's whole fascination with witches continues. Ugh. By the way, who's Pluto? Yo, Pluto, by the way, is a name you should recognize. You guys, it is from the whole Disney thing, but that's
Mickey Mouse.
good. Not from Disney, though, because that came much later. Let me finish talking, kids yelling at me. So not from Disney, because that came after this story. So you know where else Pluto comes from?
The planet.
Comes from the planet, which is the farthest away and the smallest. Do you know why they named the planet Pluto?
Because it's small.
Nicely done. It comes from Greek and Roman gods. Pluto was the Roman god of death. And so they named the cat Pluto because cat is all black. Hence, they named it the god of death. So they named the cat Pluto, just to make sure you understand the connection. I don't know. We're not done with the story yet. So now he's to the point where he is apparently not just abusive to wife, but also abusive to all of the animals, including young Pluto. Oh, sorry, not young, old Pluto. So Pluto's been around for a long time. One night, returning home, quite intoxicated from one of my haunts about town, I thought that the cat avoided my presence. I seized him when, in his fright at my sudden attack, He inflicted a small wound upon my hand with his teeth. The fury of a demon instantly possessed me. I knew myself no longer. My original soul seemed at once to take its flight from my body, and a more than cruel wickedness, alcohol nurtured, filled every fiber of my body. I took from my waistcoat pocket a small knife, opened it, grasped the poor beast by the throat, and deliberately cut one of its eyes from the socket. I blush, I burn, and I shudder while I pin this horrific crime. I feel the same way kids whose eyes just bug out on screen. When my reason returned with the morning, when I had slept, quick pause real quick. So apparently he comes home drunk one night, makes really poor choice, which would be
cutting his eye out.
Yeah, he grabbed Cat because he was drunk and he's like, come here, Cat, and grabs Cat. Cat reacts as a cat would do and then freaks down like, meow, and then grabs onto him, to which he pulls out knife and cuts out Cat's eye. So you now see power to help you out on PowerPoint. Blink, cuts out Cat's eye. So,
that seems a bit mean.
It is mean. It is awful, and we're going to find out more. Because don't worry, he's not done. It gets worser. Yeah.
He pulls his wife's eyes out. He pulls his own eyes out. Men are superior.
He could not possibly cut his own eyes out, because then how would he have
hang on.
written the story?
Jagger's talking to me. Give me a second. Correct. Correct again. Oh, it's going to get worse. He's going to commit to his poor choices. Just like the kids who like to talk over me commit to their poor choices too. Yes. And you speak forward. Your desk is way far down. If I make Sophia be close to me, you have to be close to me also. No. We're barely getting into the beginning of the rising action. Yeah. It's not yet. When my reason returned with the morning, when I had slept off the effects of the night's sins, I experienced an emotion, half of horror, half of remorse for the crime of which I've been guilty. But it was, at best, a weak and vague feeling, and my soul remained untouched. I again plunged into excessive drinking and soon drowned in wine all memory of the frightening deed. So he felt really bad about it, and it got him to stop drinking for a day. And then he figured the best way to deal with these sad feelings was to drink more. So now he's doubled down on drinking. Jagger? To feel bad. Like when a kid talks over me and loses B points, he begins to feel remorse. As an example. Not you, other children. Yelling over each other. I was trying to take my charge points. Good job. That feeling you feel in darkness in your heart is remorse. Good job. In the meantime, the cat slowly recovered. The socket of the lost eye presented a frightful appearance, but he no longer appeared to suffer any pain. He went about the house as usual, but as might be expected, fled in extreme terror at my approach. I had so much of my old heart left as to be at first grieved by this evident dislike on the part of a creature which had once so loved me. But this feeling soon gave place to irritation. And then in the spirit of unreasonableness, I am not more sure that my soul lives than I am that unreasonableness is one of the basic impulses of the human heart. Who has not 100 times found himself committing an evil or a silly action for no other reason than because he knows he should not do it? Have we not an unconscious need, despite our best judgment, to violate that which is the law merely because we know it to be wrong? I got to pause there because that's a big part of it. This should connect to you as teenagers. He says, it is part of human nature to do something that you know is wrong because you simply enjoy doing a wrong thing. It is part of just who we are as people. When your parents say, do not sneak out at night, and you go, okay, and then sneak out anyway. When they say, do not stay up late playing Among Us, and you go, okay, and then do it anyway. You do it because it's part of that thrill of going, rock on the battlefield, and you do a thing you know you should not be doing. He says, I do some things because I know I should not do them. It is part of human nature to do awful things simply because you know they are awful. Now, he's explaining, oh, by the way, what do we know is going to happen to him tomorrow? Keep that in mind. Mr. Stump. Thank you, Mr. Stump. This spirit of unreasonableness, I say, came to my final overthrow. It was this deep longing of the soul to anger itself, to offer violence against itself, to do wrong for the wrong's sake only, that urged me to continue and finally to complete the injury I had afflicted upon the innocent beast. One morning, in cold blood, I slipped a noose around its neck and hung it from the limb of a tree, hung it with tears streaming from my eyes, with remorse in my heart, hung it because I knew that it had loved me, because I felt it had given me no reason for wrongdoing, hung it because I knew that in so doing, I was committing a sin, a deadly sin that would so jeopardize my immortal soul as to place it, if such a thing were possible, even beyond the reach of the infinite mercy of the most merciful and most terrible God. So what bad thing does he do? So again, he knows it is a bad thing to do. He talks about taking the noose, and he takes the noose, hunts down Cat, hangs it from a tree. Does it while he's crying because he knows it is the wrong thing to do, and does it anyway. I know. I do not yet. Tyler? Because sometimes kids do bad things and they're not supposed to. For him, it's that he does it because sometimes you just do. He knows it's bad. People are messed up. I mean, I think that's what basically comes down to. Even when your parents yell at you and say you're going to get grounded, and you're like, I'm still going to do it anyway. And your parents are like, don't you think that's kind of dumb? And you're like, yeah. And you still do it the same thing. And so for him, it just happens to be, you're just not going to the cat hanging level. You're going to the staying up all night getting grounded level. And so sometimes he just commits. But don't worry, it gets worse. On the night of the day on which this cruel deed was done, I was aroused from sleep by the cry of fire. The curtains of my bed were in flames. The whole house was blazing. It was with great difficulty that my wife, a servant, and myself made our escape from the inferno. The destruction was complete. My entire worldly wealth was swallowed up, and I resigned myself from then on to despair. So the next bad thing that happens to him after he hangs the cat, his house catches on fire and burns down. And yet, we are still not to climax of the story, because there is still more to come. The drawback is we're not going to get to it till Friday. Your homework is to not read the end of the story, because we're going to read end of story together. That's end of class. That's where we stop. I will let that sit in your brain and haunt you, because, you know, that's so much better than math class. And now you have dead cats sitting in your brain. You are welcome.
I love dead cats.
All right.
Mr. Broviak, you did not hear this from me, but good luck for fourth period.